Right now, the stock market is telling us the United States is unbeatable. American companies make up more than 50% of the entire global stock market. This is the highest share we've seen in over 2 decades. But if you look at the real economy, the US is actually shrinking. Back in the 1960s, America produced nearly 40% of all global GDP. Today, that share has slipped to around 26%. So, we have a stock market cap at all-time highs while economic power hits lows. This is a massive divergence. Either the stock market is wrong or the global economy has fundamentally changed. And while America's slice of the pie got smaller, one country was there to pick up the pieces. Since 2000, China's share of the global economy jumped from just 4% to nearly 17% today. This wasn't an accident. Since the 1950s, China's population has expanded from about 600 million to more than 1.4 billion today. That boom created the largest workforce in human history and factories filled with millions of new workers producing goods at some of the lowest cost in the world. And with policy shifts like joining the WTO in 2001 and opening up to global trade, China quickly became the factory of the world. Since 2001, its share of global manufacturing has tripled from 10% to nearly 35% today. Meanwhile, production in countries like the US and Japan fell sharply as companies shifted operations to China. And that shift didn't just transform factories, it transformed incomes. Their GDP per capita jumped from around $1,000 20 years ago to roughly $13,000 today. A six-fold jump. If this manufacturing boom continues, China is within reach of overtaking the US. But the problem is the very engine that powered China's rise is now starting to work against it. China's population peaked in 2021, and according to the United Nations, it's set to shrink for decades from here. A declining population means fewer young workers entering the labor force, and as incomes rise, the workers China does have are no longer cheap. That combination takes away the advantage that once made China unbeatable for global manufacturing. So China can't rely on sheer population scale anymore. It needs a new engine, and that's exactly why it's trying to pivot toward high-tech industries. Everything from software, AI, data infrastructure, robotics, and semiconductors. This chart shows the number of patents related to advanced digital technologies, and China's count has surged since 2015, meaning they have been ramping up their innovation. Today, it holds roughly 28,000 of them. These new patents, more than the EU, Japan, or South Korea. If China executes well, it could potentially transition from a population-driven economy into an innovation-driven one. But there's still a huge gap to close. Manufacturing still makes up about 30% of China's economy. And when you compare innovation metrics, the US is still far ahead. The US holds almost 50,000 advanced tech patents, nearly double China's number. And when you look at the world's largest tech companies, 50 of the top 100 are American-based. China has only 13 on that list. This innovation lead is one of the biggest reasons global stock market wealth remains so concentrated in the US. Investors aren't just buying America. They're buying the mega-cap tech companies and the innovation surrounding them. The market is pricing in that this sector will drive global growth for decades to come. And since the US owns that engine, it remains the magnet for global capital. And this edge has also kept the US on top even as its manufacturing base shrank. Manufacturing now represents barely 10% of the US economy. Meanwhile, services make up almost 80%. So while China races to upgrade its economy, the US still leads where it matters most: innovation, intellectual property, and frontier technologies. And China continues to dominate the quantity side of global economy, manufacturing, infrastructure, and exports. But while these two giants compete, a third country has started accelerating in the background, and it is gaining ground much faster than most people expect. India's population has already surpassed China's, and it is still growing with no peak expected until around 2060. But unlike China, it doesn't rely on just manufacturing. Roughly 55% of India's GDP comes from services including IT outsourcing, digital payments, and business technology. And with GDP per capita still around $1,400, its middle class has enormous room to grow. Many economists now see India as one of the strongest long-term candidates to become the world's largest economy. But there's one major hurdle: innovation. India currently invests only about 6% of its GDP into research and development, far behind China at 3% and the United States at nearly 4%. So looking at these factors, we can see that no single country has a clear path to dominating the global economy, and each country leads in a different domain. The US dominates technology and capital. China dominates manufacturing and infrastructure. India dominates demographics and services. So, for the first time in modern history, Global power may no longer belong to just one nation. Instead, we could be entering a tripler world, something we've never experienced before. Understanding how these three engines interact will likely be the key to navigating the next decade of the global economy. Hit like and subscribe to stay tuned. Thanks for watching.